Oh wow, where to even start? Riding through wet eyes again. I am. I am. I am an eternal soul, and I am powerful. The amount of deeply stored heavy emotions that I have been releasing is such a burden that has caused a tremendous amount of pain that only the term weeping and gnashing of teeth seems to even come close to doing it justice. I am facing the gates of hell and all is being called forth. After having cleaned this vessel out and proving to myself that I am worthy, I am finally able to pull these negative heavy frequencies out. I pulled two long, thick, dark, energetic masses from deep in my being, and they seem to know it was their time to go because it's like once they are exposed, recognized, and faced, and you escort them up the esophagus and out of the mouth, it also appears that once they are exposed, if you are maintaining the proper frequency, they really are not even able or desiring to stay. They are the man behind the curtain, pulling the strings. This journey has brought with it an amount of experience on so many levels and so very deeply, I am still processing. Today, and the last couple years' experiences are really just making it clear to me that every single thing we think, say, and do matters. I spent decades feeding this stored energy until it weighed me down and I no longer could keep running. And since I quit running, I finally am remembering who I am. I knew as a child. I caught glimpses as an adolescent preteen, and by the time I hit my early teens, I had allowed the trauma, abuse, confusion, and hate to take over. Sure, I would help an old lady and not steal from my neighbor, but that shallow virtue signaling justification only fed the illusion that I was righteous and behaving as a proper citizen of the world. By the time I had kids, I was so hurt, confused, and hiding who I am that I can now look back through my life and see more instances than not where I was so full force on self-destruct that I never figured out what love was, and therefore was emotionally deceptive towards myself, my kids, and everyone around me. Due to the unhealed trauma and abuse suffered as a child, I unknowingly chained myself to a life of people-pleasing, a strive for perfectionism, fitting into any group of people because I just needed acceptance, and a whole tangled web of mixed emotions, confusion, and questions that were never answered. I didn't realize this was the state of most around me as I was not sober many days after the age of 16. Alcohol was the only thing that numbed the pain, allowed carelessness instead of confusion, and dampened the fire within. I see now, though, the dedication to healing and finally addressing my needs that I have been trapped since 3 years old, and that is when the takeover began. Although there is obviously a generational issue that no one in our family has addressed and is kept secret, tucked deeply away in the family taboo box, something pivotal happened at 3 that shook me to the core. When I did my child work and the 3 gray aliens were holding me hostage on my bed with their flying saucer and the light beaming into my room, it just seemed so contrived. Having kept pushing and digging to get to the bottom and trusting myself that there was something more going on than aliens, has now exposed the microscopic Trojan horse that has been gift wrapping these hallucinations, I think, by interfering with the pineal gland, basically establishing itself as the middleman between my avatar and my sense of what is. An extremely effective and manipulative, not to mention parasitical way to exist. I give up my heaven for his hell. So between the parasites, abuse, trauma, and the normalization of the inverse of natural, healthy, whole, and everything good in the environment in which I grew up with no father, no safe space, no guidance, no adult who cared, I just hid. I hid deep inside. With everything I would hide over the years, my authentic self slipped away, and that allowed every parasitical thing, whether physical, emotional, or psychological, to have their way with me. Sure, it may not seem fair, but that's getting down to the basics of what is going on here. Through this trickery and deception, we were indoctrinated to think that either we were born deserving punishment and forgiveness, or we are such an insignificant part of the grand scheme of infinite galaxies that nothing we do matters. This is the exact opposite of the truth. The devil is in the details, and he got us so diabolically wrapped up in his game that we are choosing every moment of every day to remain in his worship. We worship that which holds our attention. Well, having given my attention over to all the instant gratification, entertainment, and numbing agents that were thrown my way or acquired in the hunt for distraction and dopamine, I no longer choose to worship anything other than myself. After all, by worshiping anything outside myself, I am relegating myself to the position of a parasite in need of something else for its survival. That ended tonight. I was doing movements and moving energy, the bad out, and allowing space for my light body to fill the voids. After having moved the two large heavy energies out, I was exhausted, but my energy was high as I have been working towards this dynamic breakthrough. When these energies are being moved, you are instinctively knowing where to move the energies. The ones I've been releasing are entrenched so deeply it can take a few minutes to properly release it and get it to move through and out. The emotions that are released once those energy blockages are out are completely overwhelming. I've never cried so much in my life. When these emotions are flowing, they bring with them the knowing of the times over my life of when they were held onto and stored instead of being addressed and released. So much trauma. So relieving to finally get these cancerous attachments out and allow the space to heal in a conducive, protective environment. I've been having insomnia the past few nights, and this night would be no different. Also, the past 2 weeks, I sweat this very thick, smelly sweat that immediately soaks me and just feels very dirty. I woke up exhausted as I have every day for the past 2 weeks. Although my trips to pee in the middle of the night have diminished by half, which is a very nice addition to the rest of the healing, I took it easy again today and did not work. Not only was I completely exhausted, but it got up to 100 today, and you can't even apply product to a roof when it's that hot, as it will literally burn the paint. Today was another emotional and trauma release day. I had been listening to mostly Larimar Sound Alchemy, but had a video recommended that was specifically for people with complex disorders that are multi-layered over decades like mine. It was exactly what I needed. Due to the offbeat and sudden harsh change in frequencies and tones, it literally shakes or stirs up tricky attachments, traumas, and emotions that otherwise seem to get missed with the more gentle switches or just one frequency videos I have been watching. That was really quite revealing, as that mimics how these parasites react to treatment. Either go scorched earth, or you will find out later that the evicted tenants just moved to a different room and will be ever harder to get rid of next time. Words cannot even describe the experience of healing these root issues. It must be desired and experienced to have any clue just how naked we truly are to the predators that lay in wait. We've run around our whole lives stacking up secrets and creating our own delusions. One of the sneakiest delusions I placed on myself was that it was an environment needed to change. I find that to be untrue now that I can start to see the bigger picture. It was all me the whole time. You cannot heal by projecting or denying your involvement in your own enslavement and abuse. Sure, we most likely have been hijacked and manipulated and coerced into participating and thereby consenting. And I don't see how a child could be held in any way accountable for doing whatever necessary for trying to survive. But more to the point, there comes a time in all of our lives where we start to become our own slave masters and ignore that deep conviction and knowing within of what the right thing is, and instead just align ourselves with the hive mind and do what's necessary to fit in and survive, rather than stand up and take personal responsibility and make the proper changes. Those things specifically will eventually bog us down and cause disease. It may not seem fair, but what is in this prison? Taking responsibility, breaking myself down, and humbly dedicating myself to the recognizing of my own wholeness was a matter of life and death for me. I could not breathe another day knowing I was not fully committed to this journey. Now, as I did a few hours ago in one of my healing music sessions, I'm able to stand at a spirit level and declare to all that were there that I am. I made it clear to these other spirited beings that I bow to no one outside myself and am interested in what they have to show, but will not compromise my authority for any illusion of comfort or safety. This seemed to displease most of them, however. I was led by a very humble host and shown some things that have shaped the landscape of where we find ourselves. I am still working on holding my attention when viewing through the third eye, the pineal gland. It's very different than seeing with your eyes, especially when you add in that the communication at this level is telepathic. And I could certainly observe that I have more work to be done in healing and clearing, and probably a good idea to allow the healing and rest to catch up. It is challenging staying in that spirit form and is something that you pick up on rather quickly with the right resolve, and I have become so much more comfortable with it after just 2 to 3 days of this deep spiritual work. So many things to unpack, digest, meditate on, and put in action. I certainly see why this journey must be faced on every level of existence, as everything is intertwined and tangled together, and it will take time, dedication, honesty, courage, and trust in oneself. To really get anywhere with it. I have also seen just about every wily trick the illusion plays to steer a sojourner off course, even by the slightest margins of misdirection. But it can be done by any soul that is willing to give up this illusion. It's not easy, pretty quick, or pleasant. At times you think you are going to die, and at other times you wish you were dead already. Keep going. Why would you stop? To give an inch is no different than a mile to this parasitical system. It appears to have overlaid itself over the natural, organic, pure way of existence and has patented, packaged, promoted, pushed, pimped, and sold us a cheap knockoff version of what appears to be rightfully ours. The extent to how cheaply made these packaged goods are cannot be known until one has experienced oneself as their authentic, authoritative wholeness. Otherwise, the iron grip that instant gratification places over the capacity to live authentically, especially considering the other control mechanism and pitfalls in place, is like a drug. So much easier to just address symptoms with quick fixes than actually fully committing oneself to health and what we know to be right. By having to put in the work and proving to ourselves we are worthy of all that time and attention we have so freely prostituted to whoever and whatever will alleviate our pain, insecurities, doubts, fears, and confusion, even if it is only for a few hours, only having to pimp our avatars out again and again to avoid any kind of personal responsibility. So I push on. Now, having made so much progression in this journey, the changes are becoming quicker and more real. Whereas before these were all concepts and theories in my head, I have now been experiencing and living for the past couple years, and it's obvious that this is the only thing that matters. And I will do nothing else with the rest of my life. Most likely we'll be taking the next few days and dedicating that time to focus on clearing, cleaning, reclaiming lost parts of myself, further detaching and accepting I am. There is so much more that has transpired over the last 2 to 3 days that I am unable to unpack it all at the moment. It's like the floodgates have been released and the healing has commenced. Things are moving so quickly, I'm not sure when or if I will even be able to on a video, but either way, no stone will be left unturned and no compromises will be made. I stood today in full form as I am, in the presence of spirited beings who are used to being worshipped, and declared my absolute authority and sovereignty. I am empowered.